She saw the bright red MAGA hat and turned into a whirlwind of rage, spitting insults louder than the busy parking lot could drown out. To her, he was just another extremist ruining the country. A man who deserved nothing but public humiliation. What she didn't know was the weight of the battles he'd fought, or the medals in his pocket that would leave her speechless. By the time the truth came out, the crowd wasn't just watching, they were cheering. Let me tell you how it all unfolded. It was a bustling Saturday evening, and the parking lot of an upscale shopping mall was alive with activity. The golden hues of the setting sun reflected off shiny car hoods, creating a warm glow that contrasted with the chill in the air. Families were unloading their bags, couples strolled hand in hand, and kids darted between cars, their laughter echoing over the muffled sounds of idling engines. Amid the commotion, Joe stood out. At first glance, he was just an older man, but something about his presence demanded attention. Towering at over 6 feet, his frame was sturdy, the kind of strength built from years of hard work. His weathered face carried sharp, defined lines, a testament to the battles he'd fought, both in life and likely on distant foreign soil. His silver hair gleamed under the streetlights as he adjusted a bright red MAGA hat on his head. The hat was worn but clean, a deliberate choice that spoke volumes without saying a word. Joe's outfit matched his no-nonsense aura, a faded leather jacket that had seen countless seasons, a pair of jeans with frayed hems, and boots scuffed from years of loyal service. He wasn't here to make a statement. His mission was simple: pick out the perfect birthday gift for his beloved granddaughter. A smile tugged at the corner of his lips as he thought about her excitement. But Joe's tranquil moment didn't go unnoticed. From across the lot, Karen zeroed in on him like a heat-seeking missile. She was hard to miss, a meticulously styled blonde in her 40s, with a blowout so perfect it could double as a weapon. Her oversized sunglasses perched high on her head, and she strutted in towering heels that clicked sharply against the pavement. Her pristine white SUV, decorated with bumper stickers proclaiming "Equality for all" and "No hate here," towered nearby, a symbol of her curated progressive image. Karen's scowl twisted her face into something sharp and unpleasant, a cocktail of outrage and disdain. Her voice cut through the evening air like a siren. "Unbelievable!" she barked, her tone dripping with incredulity. Heads turned. People slowed down. The energy shifted. Joe looked up, his sharp features impassive as he met her furious gaze. Karen was already marching toward him, her heels striking the pavement harder with every step. "Who wears that garbage in public?" she demanded, pointing an accusatory finger at his hat. "You should be ashamed of yourself." Joe, unbothered, raised an eyebrow. His voice was calm, measured. "Ma'am, I'm just here to shop." "Shop?" Karen practically spat the word, her anger boiling over. She waved her arms dramatically, ensuring everyone in a 10-foot radius was part of the spectacle. "Not while I'm around! People like you are the reason this country is going downhill." Joe sighed, his patience unshaken. He had dealt with worse, far worse. "I just need a gift for my granddaughter. That's all." His calm demeanor only seemed to add fuel to Karen's fire. She began pacing, gesturing wildly toward him as she ranted. A crowd was forming now. Parents with shopping bags, teenagers with phones at the ready, a couple of mall employees on their break. Karen, oblivious to the growing audience, turned her rage toward a nearby security guard, a young man who had clearly just clocked in for his shift. "You're not going to just stand there, are you?" Karen snapped, her tone sharp enough to make the guard flinch. She jabbed a finger toward Joe. "Get this man out of here. He's creating a hostile environment." The guard hesitated, visibly uncomfortable. His eyes darted between Joe, who stood there silently with arms crossed, and Karen, whose face had turned an unflattering shade of red. Joe's lips curved into the faintest of smiles, a hint of bemusement breaking through his calm exterior. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. The spectacle was already unfolding, and Karen had made herself the star of her own unraveling. Karen wasn't done. Her tirade, already loud enough to drown out the hum of nearby cars and chatter, rose to a new level. She jabbed her manicured finger toward Joe, the red polish glinting in the fluorescent parking lot lights. Her tone, sharp and accusatory, sliced through the air. "What kind of person wears a hat like that?" she spat, her voice teetering between outrage and hysteria. "Racist! Fascist! You're probably one of those extremists ruining the country!" Her words echoed, drawing even more onlookers. A full crowd had now formed, a mix of curiosity and disbelief painted on their faces. Teenagers in hoodies nudged each other, pulling out their phones to record. Parents with small children moved a little further back, whispering nervously. But Karen didn't notice. Her fury consumed her, blinding her to the growing audience and the smirks shared among some bystanders. Joe remained unmoved, standing as if carved from stone. His arms stayed loosely crossed, his expression unreadable except for the faintest flicker of calm resolve. The storm raging in front of him barely seemed to register. Karen, however, was relentless. Her voice cracked slightly as she pushed further, her face flushed red with exertion. "Do you even care about the harm your little hat causes?" she demanded, her words dripping with self-righteousness. "Take it off, or I'll—" Joe, who had been watching her with the steady patience of someone waiting out a storm, finally spoke, cutting her off mid-sentence. His voice was low, calm and unshakable, like a deep drumbeat in the chaos. "You'll what?" he asked, his eyes meeting hers without flinching. "Spit on me?" The words hit Karen like a match to gasoline. Her body trembled with anger, and her eyes narrowed into slits. And right on cue, as if accepting his challenge, she leaned in, her face inches from his, and spat. The sound of her actions was sharp and shocking, cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. A wet spray of saliva landed squarely on Joe's leather jacket, glistening under the parking lot lights. For a moment, there was stunned silence. Then, gasps rippled through the onlookers like a wave, followed by a few muffled exclamations. Karen pulled back, straightening triumphantly as if she'd won some moral victory. Her chest heaved as she waited for Joe to react, clearly expecting him to lash out. Instead, he looked down at his jacket, slowly brushing the spot with the back of his hand. His expression was still calm, but there was a new edge to his tone when he spoke. "You crossed the line, ma'am," he said softly, each word deliberate. Then, with measured movements, he reached into the inner pocket of his jacket. Karen froze for a split second, her bravado faltering. Her eyes darted nervously to the movement, but she quickly covered her hesitation with more venom. "Oh, scared now?" she sneered. "What, gonna pull a gun on me too? Go ahead. That would just prove my point." The crowd watched in tense silence as Joe pulled out a worn leather wallet. Flipping it open, he held it up for everyone to see. It wasn't a weapon, but what he revealed silenced even Karen. Inside the wallet was a military ID, its edges slightly frayed from years of use. Next to it, neatly displayed, were replicas of medals, including a glinting purple heart. The weight of the symbols hit like a tidal wave, and the crowd visibly shifted. A few people leaned closer to get a better look, while others stepped back in quiet respect. Someone in the crowd muttered under their breath, loud enough to be heard. "Oh, no!" Karen's expression faltered entirely. The confidence drained from her face, replaced by something much closer to panic. But Joe wasn't done. His voice, though still calm, carried an unmistakable authority. "I wore this hat," he began, holding her gaze, "because I fought for your right to speak freely. I buried friends who didn't come home, so you could stand here and yell at me." His words hung in the air, and for the first time Karen was silent. Karen's face went pale as Joe's voice turned icy. "Ma'am, I served this country in Vietnam so you could have the freedom to yell nonsense in a parking lot. My friends didn't make it back. And this," he tapped the hat, "is my choice. You don't get to take that away." The crowd erupted into murmurs of approval. A young woman in the front clapped, and soon others joined in. Karen backed away, flustered, but still trying to save face. "I didn't know," she stammered. "But that doesn't excuse—" Joe cut her off. "It excuses nothing. You insulted me, spit on me, and made a fool of yourself in front of all these people. Maybe it's time to think before you act." The security guard, clearly emboldened, stepped forward. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Karen's jaw dropped. "Me? What about him? He's the problem. The guard shook his head. He's not the one causing a scene. Now, leave before I call the cops. Karen stormed off in a huff, muttering under her breath, but not before someone in the crowd shouted, "Next time, think twice, Karen!" Laughter followed her all the way back to her SUV. She peeled out of the parking lot, leaving skid marks as a final act of defiance. Joe turned to the crowd, his face softening. "Thanks for the support, folks, but let's not make this about me. Just remember, respect goes both ways." The crowd cheered, and a few people even approached him to shake his hand. One young man said, "Thank you for your service, sir, and for handling that like a boss." Joe smiled and nodded. "Just another day, kid." As he walked into the mall, a group of teenagers huddled together, one of them posting the entire incident online. Within hours, "Vietnam vet shuts down Karen" was trending nationwide, with Joe becoming an overnight symbol of grace under fire. Karen, on the other hand, found herself on the wrong side of the internet. By morning, her meltdown was everywhere. Her employer issued a public apology, and her once pristine social image was in shambles. Joe? He bought his granddaughter the perfect gift and didn't think about Karen again. Justice served.